Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the third episode of Looper Talk. My name is Tim Palmer. Got some lovely stuff to go over tonight. We're going to talk about the good old Trust Fund League, I call it, or the PGA Tour. Similar to what we did with the PGA of America, I'll talk about the origin, how it works, and then we'll talk about what needs to be improved and a lot to it. It'll more than likely be a 2-episode deal. So we'll get started. I'm going to keep it at 30 minutes, 35 minutes roughly, just so everyone's attention span will stay what it is. For me at least, I have a hard time watching videos that are more than 30 minutes long. But first, let's go to our caddy corner. Let's get a little caddy tip to start the episode. It's a bread on the plate, she a eater. Needs a bread on the plate for the feature. I'm a beast, little boy, I'm a creature. All right, so the tip for the day from a caddy would be, I want to talk about reading putts in terms of speed. I think a lot of caddies deal with this. By the way, it is so hard to read speed for people. It's one of the hardest parts of our job. And I don't know, it's like trying to tell an artist how to draw. There's no right answer. For somebody that thinks a putt's level, for some people it might be up the hill for them, depending on their stroke, or there's so much there. So this is the topic I really want to cover in this regard with putting and speed to my players, is this one thing. If a caddy reads a putt for you, more than likely the ball has to end up between a foot to a foot and a half past the hole. If you blow it by 9 fucking feet and you look at me and you say, "Oh, that didn't move." No shit. Bullets don't bend, my man. And we know basic physics. The harder I hit a putt, what happens? Well, the less it breaks. Okay, so when I read you a putt and you hit it 9 feet by the fucking hole and you look at me and say it doesn't break, I want you to know something. 1, that's very low IQ of you. 2, I'm reading your putts like most every caddy. We are reading your putts for the ball to go a foot past the hole. That is it. If you leave it short, if you go an inch past the hole, or if you go 9 fucking feet, the read will not work, okay? So let's go over this again for my players. When you have a caddy reading you up your putt, he's reading your putt so that you hit it a foot past the hole. If you blow it 9 fucking feet by, his read or her read is not going to work for you. Okay? So let's remember that as we go forward, even if you're 90 feet away. Okay? All right. Anyways, so on to the brass. Okay, so PGA Tour, or as I call it, the Trust Fund League. The reason why I call it that is because it requires a trust fund to be a part of it. I'll get into all that. Especially I have professionals that I will show you their story, explain what the issue is and why this game, when it got turned into a business model instead of a pastime recreation, there was a threshold that the PGA Tour needed to maintain, and once these golfers started getting paid millions of dollars, it broke through the threshold, and the authenticity, the integrity of the game is slowly dying, and we are seeing that now. So I got so many thoughts on this. Okay. So let's start with the origin. Work our way. I don't want to bore you with this origin shit. It's the same old deal. Bunch of white dudes got tired of the PGA of America taking in all the funds. So the professionals that wanted to play in tournaments and travel across the country, they weren't getting paid very well. Ben Hogan struggled. Arnold Palmer struggled until he got, more and more clout from fans, and then that's when the growth started happening. Nicklaus was involved with the separation. It wasn't really Ben Hogan. It was mostly Nicklaus, Palmer, and Gary Player. But they wanted to create a tour or a league, essentially, where these golf professionals can play each other for money. And they wanted all the money, instead of it going back into the PGA of America, they wanted the money to go directly to the professionals. And the reason why they wanted that is to create incentive for people to play. But what they're not going to tell you is, my personal opinion is, they saw how this was going to turn into a cash cow. Because we are playing a sport that people enjoy to watch. The fans are enjoying watching these players play, which to them gives them opportunity to make money. And that's all it was about. The tour separating from the PGA of America was because they wanted to make money. That's it. There's no integrity piece. There's no, we want to grow the game. There was none of that. It was simply just, how can I find a way to make more money at playing these tournaments, right? So PGA Tour is a large company, have 1,300 employees. We'll go over their salaries. They have a commissioner. They have a CEO, the whole nine yards. And what's interesting to me is the difference in the millions of dollars this PGA Tour brings in. It is so much bigger than the PGA of America. It's insane. The commissioner makes, I think he made $18 million, right? And then the CEO is, let's see, I'm not sure how. So just to give you an idea, the same source that we saw for the PGA of America, ProPublica, right? I think it's net worth at 1.8 billion for the whole entire organization. So there is, to go back on the PGA of America and how we can get these professionals more money, there needs to be a salary cap on these PGA Tour corporate, office managers, whoever they are. They, not only does there need to be a cap there, they could use all this prize money. They could use a percentage of it to go back into that revenue pool to help these professionals maintain a certain level of income so they can remain part of the industry. And the numbers are just shocking at what the total, so let's talk about purse sizes just to get it going. Your average purse size for each of it, now this is not including majors, right? So you have 32 tournaments a year, 36 including majors. And the four majors are your PGA Championship, the Masters, the US Open, and the Open. They are on a whole different ball game. We talked about the PGA, how much revenue that brings. And that's the lowest end revenue for the majors. The other three, especially the Masters, brings in a ton of revenue, right? And so within these 32 events, the purses are somewhere between, I think it's 8 to 9 million. So that's how much money is getting thrown at these professionals. And the percentage of payouts, I have it for the top 5 players. It is, what is the percentages? I think it's 18% for the first place, and then it goes down from there. Yeah, I'm not. Anyway, so the average winner, according to what I researched, is around 1.6 million for the winner, and then you go from there, right? And so if we take off 10% of these purses, at 8 million, right? And so you take 10% off of that, and then you times it by 10. I think you have over like 26 million, right? So let's do the math here, right? And so that alone can be enough money to help out with the the PGA professionals. Yeah, see, look, 2.5 million. That's just taking 10% off the purses. We haven't talked about their $7 billion deal with CBS. Why are they paying their commissioner an extra $15 million in endorsements? And half the way the PGA Tour makes money, you got 50% from broadcasting, 30% from sponsorships, and then the rest is from ticketing and licensing. So without this $7 billion broadcasting deal, they have no access to all this money. So and of course it's with CBS, Larry Ellison, Jewish oligarch. We know all that. He's got serious money in the hundreds of billions of dollars. So, and to me, what I find very interesting with all this, the PGA Tour has a similar, since it's a nonprofit, it's a 501c6, same tax structure. What happens with the PGA Tour is they show net losses quite often, right? Which, again, I think a lot of it comes from this being a nonprofit, and everything has to reflect back into the organization. It doesn't show everything in full throughout the year. Some things get misplaced, or some things don't show up, and then every 3 years, every 4 years, you'll have the year where all that surplus shows up, right? But it'll accommodate the losses. But what I find really interesting is we have all these sponsors, FedEx, Pacific Life. I think FedEx gives them $50 million a year, right? And we have all this money floating around, and yet Q School, right? So let's get into the whole what's wrong with the tour. I think a lot of people know about the tour. They've watched the trust fund kids play with each other, and we see, Tiger Woods' chip on 16, yay, right? So it's a very well-known organization. So we don't have to really talk about much about how it works. We get it, okay? But let's really get into the juice of what the fuck is this. So Q School, which is called qualifying school. Nowadays, you don't go to the tour, you go to the Corn Ferry. And Q School is interesting. There's 4 stages. Could be wrong, maybe 5. I believe there's 4. And you have to go through each stage. And then you get to the final stage. And then if you get in, you get your tour card. You get so many starts for the season. And it's a full season schedule. Right? So it gives you this access to make money. Right? And what's the Corn Ferry, they you win a couple times, you're making 7 figures. Right? So they make good enough money to make a really good living on the Corn Ferry. A lot of those guys are there just to stepstone into the big leagues, right? And so this is the problem I have. And this is why I call it the Trust Fund League, right? So let's give you a story. And these are stories I have heard hundreds of times. You have a young kid not from a very affluent family financially, middle, lower class, whatever the situation is, single parent household, your typical 9 yards, right? And so you have a young kid, woman or man, same deal, which I think LPGA may be a little cheaper, but golf in general is too expensive. So, young kid wants to play golf, loves the game, just watching videos, swinging in his living room, loves it, right? So, wants to go play college golf, wants to go play in high school. So he goes and plays high school. Okay. Does fairly well. Maybe shoots somewhere, scoring average around 68, 69. Super solid player. Okay. Coach is looking at him. Oh, that's fine. Great. Good enough to play D1. Right? Well, here's your problem. And we'll talk. And again, the reason why we care about high school golf and we care about what this is pertaining to the tour, the reason why we care about this is the stepping stone to get into the tour, right? And so if we don't create an avenue of accessibility that's affordable, then we have lost it from the get-go, okay? Because why else would we want to join this organization if I'm having to spend so much money just to be a part of it, right? So again, we have a young kid, good high school player, very, very well polished. Family couldn't afford to really do junior tournaments, right? So for those who don't know, junior golf is very expensive, especially if you're traveling. The AJGAs run about $300 to $400 a tournament, and then you have to pay for lodging, practice rounds. At least when I was growing up, junior tournaments of that caliber, your parents would end up spending between $1,000 to $3,000 depending on where you're going. Okay. And so it's very hard for families to financially afford the opportunity to get to these national tournaments unless they live in parts of like California, Texas, Florida, where all they have to do is commute back and forth, maybe. But even then, these college coaches are expecting these kids to have a resume that is just substantial. And the problem is, I had the Western Carolina University coach. He's no longer there. I don't want to say names, obviously, but we played a tournament at Mimosa Hills in Morganton. It's called the Joe Chevis, and it was an invitational. And I only made it 1 year, and it was a big tournament. And boy, did I not do good. I shot 77 2 days. I don't think I was in the top 100. Guys like Harold Varner, JT Poston, Grayson Murray, Drew Page, like guys I grew up playing against. These are the tournaments they played in. Ben Coles, Michael McGowan, right? So these players are playing all over the Southeast, and they're playing in the FootJoy Invitational, the Joe Chevis. They have all these resumes. And I didn't come from that, right? And so, or I didn't have the money to do all that, right? So I asked this coach one day. I was like, hey, with high school golf, like, how does that help you get a scholarship? And the coach, without even missing a beat, goes, most of us don't even care about high school golf. We care about how well-rounded the player is in terms of experience, and we like to see national tournaments on your resume. And I'm thinking, okay, so if I can't afford these national tournaments and I can't afford to go outside of high school golf, what am I doing? How can I get these coaches to give me a chance? Or even this young kid a chance that's had a better scoring average than me? How are we going to do that? And that's a huge problem in the golf world, and that's why the PGA Tour, that's why it is the way it is. That is why we will continue to lose the Ryder Cup. That is why the product is failing. And that is why it was so fragile that someone like Tiger Woods had to show up just to keep it afloat after the Nicklaus era. Right? But now that we don't have a Tiger Woods anymore, pro golf is dying. The viewership is down almost 10%. So in 2015, the viewership was between 2.6 to 2.9 million. Right now, it is down to 2.1 to 2.6, and our population has increased by 25 million. And we are down viewers, right? So pro golf is dying. Now, the golf itself is not dying, but professional golf is. And whether you like it or not, that's just how it is. And the problem that we're facing right now is you want us to relate to these guys on tour like Scotty Scheffler? Like, Scotty Scheffler came from one of the richest neighborhoods in Dallas. And I understand you're trying to pull the whole Christian card where, oh, he's religious. We love him. Scotty is a God-following man, which hopefully he is. But there's nothing relatable about him, or even a guy like Justin Thomas. You go watch the full swing, the very first season, and you get 30 minutes into the episode, not even, and you have Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas bitching about shit on a private jet. And yet you got kids out there that are just begging for an opportunity to even get a chance to play in an AJGA event, and they will never get that chance. And you're wondering, like, like, where, as professional golf fleets and Americans, how can we sit here and just act like this isn't a problem? And this is why our sport is slowly turning into bowling, where it's just going to be a pastime. In reality, that's what it should be. That should be the main focus of golf. However, the professional side has added more flavor to the pitch. It has given us more opportunity for growth because people are watching these professionals play, and it gives them incentive to be a part of the sport. But the problem is we have turned it into so much of a business now that we are losing sight of the reality of the situation. And the reality of the situation is you cannot create a sport that was meant to be created for a pastime and turn it into a business and then think that this business is going to continue to succeed. It's not. Because you are taking something that is pure and whole and you're dicing it up slowly and selling it to the world as you make money off of it. And that's just not how the game is. That's not what it's meant to be. St. Andrews turns into a park on Sundays. That is the home of golf. There is nowhere on this planet that has as much nostalgia as St. Andrews. You can argue Augusta. Who fucking cares? Augusta exists because of St. Andrews. We all are golfing because of St. Andrews. And this golf course turns into a park where you have guys walking their dogs, and a dog can take a shit on the 18th fairway, and no one seems to bat an eye. But can you imagine me and you walking on Augusta National on a Sunday with our dogs? Not a fucking chance. Shit, they barely let their members play. I mean, what are we doing? And you have all the PGA Tour making all this money. They have all this opportunity to give back to the golf community, help our golf professionals make more money, help make it affordable for kids. Let's make Q School free. Let's give people that don't have these financial means a fucking chance to even get on the stage, dude. Okay, I have 4 caddies, maybe even 5. I would say closer to 10. But I know for a fact I have at least 2 caddies. Okay? You got Tyler Falk and you got Kyle Crawford. And there is a shitload in the Bandon Dunes yard. Okay, I do not want to discredit y'all. I can name 30 guys that are +2 and better right now. All right? That's not the point. Point is, you have these two dudes that are immensely talented. And I mean very, very talented players. They are very qualified. They could, if they decided to put their effort into where they needed to put it into in the golf world, they would have made the tour twice over by now. But do you know why these two guys aren't on tour? Oh, money? No fucking shit. You want to hear Tyler's story? Dude won Q School in Canada. Canadian Q School. Won it. Couldn't travel around Canada for very long. Missed a few cuts. Guess where he is now? Working at Lab Golf. The dude is as good as any of these guys I have caddied on the tour. I've literally watched them play. I have seen it all. There is not one single person on this planet that is as talented or more talented than those guys. I promise you. And I know there's people out there just like me that has seen these guys that are +6s, +7s, will shoot 60s between 64 and 68 12 times in a row from 7,200 yards. Hits, carries at 310. They don't give a shit. Why? Why can't we give these players a chance? Because it's about money. The PGA Tour does not give a shit about giving opportunity. All they care about is how much money you can make them. Hence why these college coaches, they want these players that have parents that spend all this money on national tournaments. You know why? Because listen to this. And I'm sorry to break to the bad news to all you golf coaches, but this is how it goes. Golf coaches at D1 schools, they need money for their booster club because that's how they maintain their job, by donations to the booster club. They can't give a lot of scholarships because the university itself can only give so many scholarships, and they give scholarships to the sports that bring in the most view time, the most money, hence football, basketball, baseball, right? So, as a golf coach, right, you have a lot of pressure on you to make sure that you're getting money into the booster club. That's why you're there, right? So, why would I invest in a kid that has a lot of heart and a lot of passion but doesn't come from money? I'm going to pick the kid that's maybe a couple strokes worse than him, but I know for a fact he comes from money because you know what I can do? I can give that person a scholarship partially while I convince their parents to donate to the booster club. And when I do that, guess what happens to my job? It stays intact. I get my money, I get to feed my family. So these kids, these young kids that are 17, 18 years old that have grinded their ass off to get to where they need to go, if you don't play in enough national junior tournaments, this PGA Tour will never happen. Because at the end of it, it's about experience. When you're playing tournament golf, you can be as good as you want. I don't care how good you are. By all means, shoot your 59 at your Muni. I don't give a fuck. When you get into tournament golf, it is a different ball game. It just is. And when you can't seem to understand that, and you think that players just should be able to just to show up in a tournament and shoot the 63s to get their chance, you don't understand golf. You don't. We have to be better, not only as golf professionals, but we need to, on the PGA Tour, we have to wake up to the reality of this situation. This is not going to help. At the end of it, the more that we exploit the game for money, the worse it's going to get. Do you know why people love Tiger Woods? Because we could relate to him. You know why we could relate to him? Because he didn't come from a big, wealthy family. Okay? I'll give you a story right now. Max Homa. Decent golfer, obviously. He's made the tour. He's talented as shit. He was the ace. He was the college player of the year. He won the big tournament at the end of the year. He's won a few Corn Ferry events. Okay, I'm gonna tell you his story really quick, and then we're gonna call it the episode. The next episode, I really want to talk about solutions and talk about money and talk about everything and see how we can figure this out. But this episode, I want you all to really grasp what I'm telling you, because this needs to change. It needs to change fast. If it doesn't change, we are going to be a part of a product that's eventually going to lead us into the ground. Because the PGA Tour is where all the influence is, and that influence is what really keeps the golf industry alive. Is the Tiger Woods, the Ben Hogans, Mo Normans, like these players. And I'm sorry for you influencers. Oh, well, I influence, and I have a YouTube channel that has 1 million subscribers, therefore I'm something. No. Good for you for making money, but you ain't influencing shit. If it wasn't for Tiger Woods, none of y'all would even have the platform you do. But the fact that you're somewhat catchy and you have a chance to like maybe make an impact, fine. But you all are not doing anything but using your influence for your own personal gain. Because if you all did have any sort of gall, you would actually donate back to the game. We wouldn't have these problems, especially the main PGA Tour guys. So I'm going to give you the story really quick, and we're going to call the episode. This is why I'm doing this podcast. Is this shit right here? It's just insane to me. This trust fund league that we have created, and we expect to win the Ryder Cup against Europeans that had to dig it out of the dirt and die for this game. We're going to hand it to some trust fund kids who sat there and watched their mom and dad fork out hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get them these opportunities. They don't know the worth of money. They don't give a fuck. Why should they? They have been handed. They don't have to sit there and actually work their ass off. All they do is hit golf balls and play in tournaments. If they fuck up in a tournament, guess what? Daddy's going to pay for the other one. They don't give a shit. So anyways, this is my point. Max Homa. And I don't know the guy. Seems like a decent dude. He definitely rubs me as the spoiled kid that never really had a lot of resistance, but a lot of them do. Sorry, I don't give a fuck. But this is the truth. Okay, Max Homa. So the average cost for a tour player is between $150,000 to $250,000. Now, when you graduate from Corn Ferry and you make it on the tour, the average endorsement deals, now we're not talking clubs, shoes, and all that. We're talking endorsement, money. The average endorsement's between $50,000 to $80,000. That's about roughly, okay? So, Max Homa played in 16 events, missed 14 cuts. Made a total of $18,000 in the year 2016-2017 season. He was on 14 different flights, and he had caddy fees, and he had food, lodging, right? And that's the $150,000 to $250,000 cost. You guys should actually go to ChatGPT, type this in, word for word. Say during the 2016-2017 PGA Tour season, how much money did Max Homa lose? It is over $100,000. So this dude gets on, makes some money on the Corn Ferry. Hopefully he made $1 million. Who knows? But this dude gets on tour, okay, and he loses over $100,000 in 1 year. Who the fuck's forking that out? I mean, did he just kept his two, like, I don't even know if he made $1 million. I would like to, good. Go in the comments section. Tell me how much money he made in 2015. I'd like to see that. I think he won a couple events. But I just don't understand how you can lose $100,000 and then the next year you're just right back in the Corn Ferry, just right back in it. I don't know. I get really upset about this because no one's doing shit about it. People are so obsessed with money that they don't give a fuck about this. And this is the core problem. This is what's wrong with pro golf. It costs too much fucking money to even get there, to want to be a part of it. I don't know. It's insane. Like, I feel bad for these young kids that have to grow up loving the game of golf and knowing that they will never actually do anything with it, because it's not that they don't want to not do anything with it. They just can't. Like, hey, let's go play Corn Ferry. I got a chance. I'm a +6. Fuck it. Let's roll. Well, do you have 18 grand? Annual cost of living is 77,000. You want to spend a fourth of that on a tournament? You don't? No shit. Who the fuck does? Who can afford that? No, he's such a good player. Look at him. He's doing so good in these tournaments. Well, yeah, because he knows if he fails, he just shows up to the next week and he's got it silver plattered right there for him, ready to go. Please, if you haven't noticed on the golf stuff lately, they always try to promote he came from nothing and look at him, he prospered, or oh my god, this Monday Q info fucking page is going, oh my god, look at this story. And then they'll tell you about some kid who went to Methodist college and he didn't he never did anything, never had any money or nothing, blah blah blah. And it's like, then you go look up what their parents do for a living. Oh, he owns a private equity firm. Oh, he's a neurosurgeon. Oh, look, you're not going to find a story where one of these dudes didn't come from money nowadays. And that's why they're unrelatable. And the fact that they're unrelatable means what? It's hard for us to actually give a shit. Oh, and that's why the viewership's down? Oh, no shit. And what's even worse about that is we have TVs in our pockets now. And the viewership is still this down. And back in 2015, it was, the smartphones were obviously rolling, but it wasn't as easily to watch TV as it is on your phone now. And the viewership is down. Which then, so this next episode, I'm really curious about this and how to figure out, so to end this episode, let's think about a question really quick, and we'll go from there. So, how come a PGA or an organization like the PGA Tour on their financial report is showing losses in the last 3 out of the last 5 years, but yet they have enough money, because Liv got introduced, and then they're like, okay, we got to find money. We got to find money somewhere. We got to keep these boys wanting to play. Let's pay $3.5-4 million for a fucking winner. Bullshit. So what happens is you have all this, okay, we have to raise the purses. Okay, so how are we raising these purses and having these heightened events for specific golfers, but yet our viewership is down and, everything's like, how does that work? If our viewership is down and yet we're showing net losses on our financial reports, how are we able to afford to raise the purses? Like, are we raising ticket prices? Okay, if that's the case, then our viewership, and then our which makes sense because you don't see a lot of people out there, like the Pebble Beach tournament this past year. That looked like absolute shit. I don't watch them that much anymore. I can't stand it. I get so mad just watching the tour. I don't even fucking watch them anymore. So forgive me if I'm not up to date. I really despise most of those guys. I just think they are a bunch of spoiled brats that don't deserve what they got. So that's just me. But anyway, so I want us to think about some things for the next episode. How can an organization, like I said, how does it get more money into the organization while it's showing losses and while there's viewership down? My thoughts are it's that CBS deal for $7 billion. Looks like Mr. Larry Ellison is forking out some money for the boys. Why do you think Tiger Woods and all those guys were meeting Donald Trump, who, by the way, is Jewish? Why do you think they ain't joined the Live Tour? Because who hates Muslims the most? So, not everything as it seems, people. And trust me when I tell you this, there's about, I don't know, 100 guys in this country that are better than 50% of the PGA Tour. Yes. Sorry, I know that pisses you off and you're going to, but we do not have the best players in our country playing on that tour. We have the best players that can afford it. Okay? Just remember that. There's, again, I can count 20 right now that are good enough to make it on that tour. That would, I watched Matt Naismith shoot 78, duck hooking his 3-wood all over the place at down in Palm Desert. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but dude, I mean, so on the next episode, we're going to maybe hash out some more of these problems, but I really want to talk solutions and how we can fix this, because that's the key. Fuck this. We get that there's problems, but I want to come up with some solutions, and I want to make this better, and I want to save pro golf. I think we can do that with the right mindset and the right attitude towards, what the true value of golf is, and that's integrity, character, those things. We need to take the whole I need to make money on it deal out, and we need to start bringing it back to its roots. That way the next Tiger Woods or Ben Hogan can actually come up and be formed. Because I think players like that don't come from light resistance growing up. I think a lot of those players, they come from tough backgrounds and they've had to learn a lot of life lessons early on. Hence why I think Ben Hogan was as good as he was. So, thank you all for the opportunity. I don't know why I said that, but that sounds good. Thank y'all for watching. Looper Talk. That was my episode 3. Getting a little better at this. There's probably some you-knows in there. Sorry. I'm working on it. I don't have my jar here. I got to put money in it. So I'll show you all the jar the next episode. It's a big old jar. But I really want to, first, after I get done, before I end this episode, I really want to thank y'all for giving me the time, for even considering what I'm saying. I know I'm just some caddy from, whatever, band and wherever, just doing my thing. But I really do appreciate you all giving me this opportunity to speak and to, just to be a part of the industry, really. So I'm hoping for better things in our future, and I'm really excited that I can come up with some ideas that will prosper for us. And hopefully some junior golfers out there will rekindle some hope, and these parents don't have to feel like they got to spend an arm and a leg. And that way we can, continue being a part of this beautiful sport that we love so much. So thank you all again. Looper Talk. And remember, lighten your bags, 200 a strap. I love it. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.